Have you ever wondered why you keep making the same mistakes, even when you promised yourself you wouldn't? Why you set goals only to sabotage them, as if some invisible hand was pulling the strings? Why the same kinds of people, the same patterns keep showing up in your life, no matter how far you run? Maybe you've blamed bad luck, maybe you've blamed other people, but the truth is far more unsettling. It's not the world that traps you, it's your own mind, and it has had centuries to perfect its prison. Science has known about these traps for over 100 years. Behavioral psychology, decision theory, cognitive science, all of them agree. Your brain is not built for truth, it's built for survival. And what kept your ancestors alive may be the very thing that's killing your dreams. Today, we're going to decode 13 of these psychological traps, not just to name them, but to show you the single force that links them all, the hidden thread that determines whether you live asleep or finally wake up. This is not going to be a self-help checklist you forget by tomorrow. This is going to be a guided tour through your own mental operating system. You will see why you waste hours on things you swore you'd quit, why you trust people who don't deserve it, why you cling to things that are already gone, why, despite knowing better, you do worse. But here's the shift. Once you see the architecture of the trap, you stop being the prisoner. Once you see the strings, you stop being the puppet. We'll start with the surface, the obvious tricks your brain plays in daily life. Then we'll go deeper, into the biases you can't see but that control your choices. And finally, we'll descend into the core, the single unconscious pattern that powers all 13 traps. By the end of this video, you won't just know the traps. You'll know how to spot them in real time. You'll feel the moment the hook is being set. And you'll have the one insight that changes everything. That it's not about escaping the traps. It's about walking through them with your eyes open. So take a deep breath, because once you start this journey, you won't be able to unsee what you learn. You think you're making your own choices. You think your preferences are born from your mind alone. But take a step back and you'll see most of what you chase because others are already running toward it. This is the herd illusion. Picture a line forming outside a new restaurant. You don't know the food. You haven't seen the menu, yet the crowd pulls you in. Somewhere deep inside, your brain whispers, if they want it, it must be good. That's the cue effect, the belief that value is measured by how many people are willing to wait for it. This instinct once kept our ancestors alive. Following the tribe meant safety from predators and the unknown. But today, the predator is irrelevance, and the hunt is for status, not survival. We follow lines into overpriced experiences, viral trends, and opinions we've never tested because the crowd gives them weight. Then there's the minority effect, the strange flip side. If something is scarce, not in quantity, but in popularity, we assume it's elite. We think, only a few understand this. I want to be one of them. We buy into obscure clubs, niche philosophies, hidden corners of the internet, not because we've weighed their truth, but because we crave the feeling of being set apart. We're still in the herd, only this time we're competing to be at the edge. This trap spares no age. In school, it's the brands you wore because everyone or no one had them. In adulthood, it's the investments you make because smart money is moving, or the hobbies you pick up because your friends do. Even your deepest beliefs can be traced back to what your social circle rewards. And here's the wound it leaves. You never truly know if the life you're living is yours, or just a reflection of the people around you. You risk becoming a collage of borrowed preferences, mistaking collective momentum for personal direction. Awakening begins when you see the herd for what it is, a mirror, not a compass. You start asking, if no one else wanted this, would I still? Sometimes the answer is yes. Often, it's not. That's when you begin to separate the noise of belonging from the signal of your own voice. And until you do, you'll always be in danger of mistaking movement for meaning. The next trap doesn't just lure you forward with the crowd. It makes you run faster, by convincing you there's almost nothing left. Scarcity doesn't just make you want something, it makes you need it. It whispers, if you don't act now, you'll lose your chance forever. And the terrifying part? You don't even have to want the thing in the first place. The ticking clock creates the desire. First comes the sale trigger, the only two left tag, the 24-hour countdown, the blinking last chance banner. Your rational mind knows there will always be another sale, another chance, another version. But your survival brain doesn't deal in logic. It's wired for urgency. For most of human history, if you didn't grab what was in front of you, someone else would, and you'd go hungry. That instinct still fires in a grocery aisle, a dating app, or a flash sale online. You aren't deciding based on value. You're deciding based on fear of loss. Then there's the free effect, the most seductive spell of all. When the price tag drops to zero, your guard drops with it. You take things you don't need, sign up for trials you'll never use, and fill your life with noise. Free hides the real cost. Your time, your attention, your mental space. You end up spending hours on something worthless simply because you didn't spend money on it. Scarcity plays on more than your wallet. It hijacks your sense of worth. You chase the limited because you believe it will make you more. Limited edition shoes, exclusive events, private memberships, not for the object itself, but for the identity it promises. And without realizing it, you begin to measure yourself by your ability to capture what others can't have. But here's the dark truth. Scarcity isn't always real. It's manufactured. The product isn't rare. Your peace of mind is. And when you live under the scarcity spell, you become easy to control. Every decision can be rushed. Every desire amplified by the illusion that time is running out. Awakening starts when you stop asking how rare is it and start asking how true is it. You learn to see the false emergencies for what they are, alarms set by someone else to make you move. You slow down, you breathe, you remember. Nothing worth having is lost because you didn't grab it in a panic. And when you can resist the siren song of scarcity, you're ready for the next trap, the illusion of obviousness, the one that convinces you something must be true simply because it's easy to remember. Your mind is lazy, not in a shameful way, but in a deeply human, energy-saving way. The brain is built to conserve effort, to grab the first piece of information that floats to the surface and treat it as truth. That's where the illusion of obviousness takes root, in the gap between what's easy to recall and what's actually real. The first snare is the availability heuristic, your tendency to judge how likely something is by how quickly examples come to mind. Hear about a plane crash on the news? You start thinking flying is dangerous, even though you're statistically far safer in the air than on the road. See a handful of sensational crimes on social media? Suddenly the whole world feels like it's on fire. Your brain confuses what's vivid with what's frequent. Then comes the illusory truth effect. The more you hear something, the truer it feels. This is why propaganda works, why rumors spread, why even you, scrolling late at night, might catch yourself believing a headline you know is shaky, simply because you've seen it 3 times in the past week. Repetition doesn't just reinforce memory, it reshapes belief. This trap doesn't just fool your intellect, it distorts your emotional reality. If your mind is constantly fed with examples of rejection, failure, and danger, your nervous system begins to live in a world where those things are everywhere. You stop trusting the data and start trusting the story your memory has stitched together from the loudest moments. And here's the danger for your awakening. If you can't separate what is obvious from what is true, you will spend your life reacting to shadows. You'll fear the rare and ignore the constant. You'll cling to facts that are nothing more than echoes. The first step to breaking this illusion is brutal honesty. Ask yourself, do I believe this because it's true or because it's easy? When you pause long enough to dig past the first answer that surfaces, you step out of the current that sweeps most people away. You stop letting your memory dictate your reality, and you start seeking reality for yourself. But the next trap is subtler and far more dangerous because it doesn't just use memories or repetition to trick you. It warps the very laws of cause and effect, convincing you that patterns you see must be connected. This is the causation mirage. Humans crave certainty. We want the world to make sense, to run on rules we can decode, predict, and control. That hunger for order is what makes the causation mirage so seductive. It convinces you that because two things appear connected, one must have caused the other. And once you believe you've found the formula, you stop questioning it. The first illusion is the equation illusion, our need to reduce life's messiness into neat, solvable math. Work hard equals succeed, love deeply equals be loved back, eat clean equals never get sick. The formulas feel empowering until they fail. And when they fail, the disappointment is crushing, because you didn't just lose an outcome, you lost the illusion that life is predictable. But life is not a calculator. You can do everything right and still get the wrong result, because human reality is far more complex than the rules we invent for it. Next is the grouping bias, the belief that people who share one trait will share the same outcome. We think they went to the same school, so they'll achieve the same success, or they're in the same industry, so they must think alike. This bias keeps us blind to individual differences, trapping us in stereotypes that comfort us with false predictability. Then comes the most famous mistake: correlation equals causation. You see two things happen together, so you assume one made the other happen. More ice cream sales and more drownings in summer? It must be the ice cream. Except it's really the heat. This thinking is everywhere, in news headlines, social media studies, and even in the way we judge people. We see patterns and jump to conclusions, forgetting that patterns can be accidents, not evidence. Finally, there's probability blindness, our inability to truly feel numbers. A 1 in 1,000 chance feels like 0 until it happens to us, while a 50% chance can feel like a certainty if we're emotionally invested. We underreact to real risks and overreact to rare ones simply because statistics are abstract while fear is visceral. The causation mirage is dangerous because it gives you a false sense of control. You start to believe that if you can just spot the right pattern, you can master life. But that's an illusion. Awakening requires accepting that complexity is not your enemy, it's reality. When you let go of the need for every event to have a neat explanation, you start living in truth instead of chasing a perfect equation that doesn't exist. And once you free yourself from false patterns, you'll see the next trap waiting: the survivorship filter. The bias that hides failure from view, making you believe the winner's story is the whole story. History is written by the winners, but life is lived by everyone, including those who never make it to the final chapter. The survivorship filter blinds you to this. It's the bias that happens when you only see the successes and forget that for every visible victory, there are countless invisible failures buried beneath it. The first snare is the missing data trap, the dangerous habit of making conclusions without seeing the whole picture. You read about the entrepreneur who became a millionaire at 25, but you don't hear about the hundreds who went bankrupt chasing the same dream. You watch an athlete defy all odds, but you never meet the thousands who trained just as hard and never made it past the tryouts. Without the failures in view, your mind builds a fantasy. Success is common, almost guaranteed, if you just try hard enough. Then there's the success showcase bias, the glossy highlight reels that dominate our feeds, our conversations, our cultural memory. We hear the survivor's story, the miracle recovery, the 1-in-a-million romance. The narrative is inspiring, but it's incomplete. And because the human brain loves stories with a hero, we mistake the exception for the rule. The danger is subtle but profound. When you only see the survivors, you think the path is safer, easier, and more certain than it really is. This skews your decisions. You take bigger risks without understanding the odds. You compare your slower progress to someone's polished outcome and feel like a failure when in reality you might be doing better than most. You just can't see the ones who fell off the map. Awakening from this trap means forcing yourself to look at what's missing. Seek out the silent stories, the unspoken data. Remember that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. When you factor in the unseen, your expectations become more grounded, your decisions more realistic, and your self-worth less dependent on rare, polished examples. But once you see through the survivorship filter, another bias waits, one that doesn't just hide failure but actively reshapes how information reaches you. That's the frame prison, where the same truth can look like two different realities depending on how it's presented. Reality isn't just what happens, it's how it's presented to you. The frame prison is the bias that chains your judgment to the way information is packaged, not the truth it contains. Change the frame and you change the meaning, even if the facts stay exactly the same. The first lock is the framing trap. A medical procedure with a 90% survival rate sounds reassuring. The same procedure with a 10% death rate feels dangerous. Both statements describe the same reality, yet your brain reacts as if they're different worlds. Politicians, marketers, and even well-meaning friends use framing to steer your emotions before your reason has a chance to catch up. You think you're deciding, but really, you're reacting to the frame. The second lock is loss aversion. Your mind's obsession with avoiding loss, even at the cost of growth. Psychologists have shown that losing $100 hurts about twice as much as gaining $100 feels good. That's why you cling to investments that are sinking, toxic relationships that are draining, or routines that keep you stagnant. The fear of losing what you already have distorts your ability to see what you could gain. Then there's anchoring bias, the trap of letting the first number, fact, or idea you hear set the reference point for everything that follows. A house listed for $800,000 makes the $750,000 option look like a bargain, even if both are overpriced. The anchor becomes the yardstick, and you measure without realizing the ruler was planted there for you. The frame prison works because it bypasses logic and speaks directly to your emotional wiring. It convinces you that you're weighing facts when you're really weighing feelings triggered by presentation. And as long as you live inside it, someone else is always holding the picture frame around your life, deciding which angles you see and which are cut off. Awakening from this trap means learning to look past the frame. Ask, what's the raw data? What's the other way to tell this story? When you strip away the packaging, you take back the power to see reality as it is, not as it's sold to you. But even when you've broken free from frames, another force keeps you tethered, not to how the world is shown, but to how it feels right now. That's the now addiction, where short-term comfort steals the future you were meant to have. Each of these first 6 traps might seem different. The pull of the crowd, the seduction of scarcity, the comfort of the familiar, the false certainty of causation, the illusion born from survivors, the framing that shapes our choices. But they are all the same predator wearing different masks. And that predator isn't out there. It lives in the mind, in the quiet recesses of your decision-making, in the reflexes you don't question. Awareness alone is not the cure. Knowing the trap exists doesn't stop it from snapping shut. Because your mind isn't just tricked, it's wired to be tricked. These patterns are ancient, evolutionary shortcuts meant to help us survive. But in a complex modern world, they don't just help, they mislead, they blind, they chain you to unconscious habits. If you want freedom, you have to do more than notice them. You have to engineer your life so they cannot quietly hijack your choices. That means slowing down your decisions, breaking the link between trigger and reaction, creating systems that favor your long-term truth over your short-term impulse. It means building a mental environment where the mind's ancient tricks can't run on autopilot. These 6 traps are the warm-up. The more you see them, the more you realize the world isn't as it is, it's as your mind frames it. every sale, every headline, every post, every statistic story you hear, filtered through distortions older than your name. The awakening journey doesn't start with mystical visions. It starts with dismantling the levers and pulleys inside you. Once you've spotted these traps, you've taken your first step out of the maze. But the maze fights back. The deeper we go, the more seductive the illusions become, because they start wearing your own face. In the next chapter, we'll walk into the darker half of the list, the traps that don't just influence your decisions, but rewrite your identity. Pride, confirmation, ownership, sunk cost, the halo glow, and the final snare that keeps you measuring your worth by someone else's ruler. If you think you're awake now, wait until you see how deep the next 7 go. That's in the next video. Don't miss it.